Great Writers Media.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we are delighted to welcome Richard Sierra. He is a renowned legal expert and author. He is going to be talking to us about his new book called Business SOS: 8 Common Legal Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. He is a sought-after authority on business law, and his work is a valuable resource for entrepreneurs seeking to navigate the legal landscape without stumbling into common pitfalls. We're delighted to have Richard join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the folks at Great Writers Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel. Richard, thank you so much for being our guest today on Spotlight.
Logan, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. We were talking a little bit before we began, and I said, in this day and age, the year 2023, post-COVID, there are so many entrepreneurs out there, so many small business owners, sole proprietorships, corporations, LLCs, and a lot of the folks at the helm know how to run their business, but they don't understand the law and how it could mess them up down the road. I guess that's who you're targeting your book to, right?
Correct. I'm targeting all business owners. I mean, the reality is that business is a challenge, and that's the longer you're in business that you will face legal issues. It is inevitable that you will face them. So the book really talks about the 8 common legal mistakes that I found that in my consultations with business owners, there were repeated mistakes. So I thought, let me write about this so I can reach a larger audience, and perhaps a business owner, by reading the book, be able to recognize something that might come along in the future that perhaps he or she can avoid making a mistake by just overstepping the landmine that most likely would happen.
Absolutely. Let's give the viewers a little bit of the book. Let's tell them what the number one mistake is that business owners make.
I think that number one mistake is doing legal work or trying to resolve a legal matter by yourself without consulting an attorney. That unfortunately happens all the time. But going into more specific about what type of legal mistake I see people doing, I will talk about lease agreements. The commercial lease agreement is probably the largest expense that a business owner will have next to payroll. And for whatever reason, business owners believe that they can go and review a lease agreement, a commercial lease agreement, analyze and understand all the intricacies of the document, sign it, put a deposit, and think that if something goes wrong, they can get out of the contract later on. And those lease agreements are for the landlord's benefit. They're not for the tenant's benefit. So when they come to my office, say, listen, the business didn't do as well as I thought it was going to do, and I need to get out of this contract. I'm like, it's going to be very difficult. So, my advice to business owners who are about to go into a commercial lease, they're about to renew their lease or negotiate a lease, consult with an attorney.
Yeah. I think the old saying is, he who represents himself represents a fool, right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. You've got to be careful. These are tough waters to navigate sometime. What made you decide to write a book?
I wanted to, share my experiences with business owners and really my clients. I learned, a lot from my clients, and I wanted to share my thoughts and really give more of not a legal book per se, but really give more of a conversation, a practical view of, listen, this is something that most likely will happen to you in your business journey. I wanted to at least share with you my thoughts as a business lawyer and how perhaps you can handle it, more importantly, how to avoid it, and recognize those symptoms or those triggers that perhaps might be the time to perhaps call an attorney. So that's why I wrote the book.
Gotcha. Tell us a little bit about your practice in South Florida.
I own the Florida Small Business Legal Center. We've been in business now for 18 years. So for 18 years, I've spoken to 2,000 business owners, day in and day out. And I represent the business owners that you see in a strip mall. They're mom and pop shops, the pizza owner, martial arts instructor, uh, the dry cleaner, the restaurant. Those are my clients. So those are the people that, they go in there and they grind it every single day.
Hmm.
So those are the type of clients that I have, and that's really what I enjoy, who I enjoy talking to the most, because they're struggling and they're having a hard time. They're looking for creative ways of solving those issues. Could be an employee issue, could be a minor issue, could be a lawsuit, could be anything that comes along the way. In addition to trying to make their business operate and run, getting customer sales, making payroll. So what I try to do is basically, if you have a legal problem, you come to me. Let's find a creative way to solve it. And once you give it to me, it's in my hands, and I'll try to work with you to get you out of this so you can go back and running your business as efficiently as possible and just go back to your life and not have to worry about the legal problem that is distracting you, during that period of time and taking away from your business.
Yeah. Is business structure, whether you form as a proprietorship, partnership, LLC, C Corp, S Corp, or what have you, is that fundamental in making that first step in starting your business?
It is important to decide what type of business structure you're going to have. A sole proprietorship, you have unlimited liability. You're on your own. So anything happens in that business, you are responsible for it. And if you select a corporation, could be an S Corp or an LLC, for example, but the corporation has a separate legal entity, and therefore you're not personally liable for corporate acts. So I recommend my clients to, whether it's a corporation or an LLC, to select the business structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see the business law landscape changing over the next decade?
Absolutely. Yes, I believe that with new technologies, there's more information available for business owners, and it's been here for a while. They're talking about online documents that people download. Now you have ChatGPT that is available that can answer questions. So it is changing, and I think that for us to be more competitive, we need to be problem solvers. No longer, analyzing a specific statute or law. That is going to be readily available already through online searches.
Yeah.
But, I believe a good business lawyer has to be creative, has to understand the budgetary limitations of the business owner or the client, and in comparison to the business problem that they have, and find a way to solve it within their constraints of their budget. So creativity, it is very important in analyzing the problem. It's not every one size fits all. It's basically, we're going to triage the problem, find out how we can solve it, and try to get you out of it. It might not be perfect, might not be pretty, but the goal is to get you out of it as fast as we can.
What was it like coming up with the 8 common mistakes that businesses make? Were these experiences and problems that kept on rearing their head time after time in dealing with clients?
Yeah, the initial manuscript was 7 legal mistakes, and I think we split one additional one and made it an 8. And at one point I had to 10, so we were back to 8 in the drafting process. So because some of them were repetitive, so we kind of consolidated them, but they were very common themes. And many of them, if you're going to consolidate even further, is really trying to do legal work by yourself is one of them. Obviously, a lease agreement. I spent a great deal of time talking about lease agreements because it's very important, but also talk about defending a lawsuit on your own, which is something that I see happening frequently, and it's just not a good idea. People get served, whether it's a vendor suing them for a failure to pay, whether it's even a landlord suing the tenant for past due rents, whether it's a franchisor suing a franchisee for, lack of payment of royalties. And I see people, some business owners get this lawsuit, and then instead of calling an attorney immediately, they decide to write a letter to the judge explaining their position or his or her position. and then they find out that they cannot do it, they get stricken, and that's the time that they call an attorney to find out what should I do. And these are real life scenarios. What I'm giving you, this is not something that has not happened or theoretical. By the time they come to me, something has happened along the way that has made the problem even worse. Because by writing a letter to the judge, you end up waiving defenses in some cases that you cannot bring back again. And then we have to try to undo it or figure out a procedural maneuver to get us back to square one so we can really handle the case properly. Yeah. So I think the rule of thumb is that if you have an attorney on the other side, you need to get an attorney on your side. Okay, do not engage in negotiations with an attorney directly. Do not file anything with the court where an attorney is filing against you. You need to level the playing field. The attorneys know the rules of court. You do not. So you need to have somebody there protecting you that is trained properly in the rules of court, the rules of civil procedure, so that way you're protected. You can have the best case possible on the facts. If you do not know procedure, you will lose your case.
Exactly. It's all about procedure when it comes down to it. It's not my truth or their lies and, whatever it is. It's about procedure. It's about understanding case law. It's about understanding the protocol of court. And unless you're an attorney, you can't do that. Tell me a little bit.
If I may add something, that when we look at the cases, close to about 80% of the entire case from beginning to end is on procedure. Our procedural motions, discovery motions, everything is the attorneys are basically going back and forth on procedural matters. 20% of the case is actually the facts of the case, which is the trial. And that's at the very end of the case after someone has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees.
Yeah.
So procedural is extremely important when you're litigating the case.
Right. Exactly. Process of service can eliminate the case immediately if your client has been properly served, for example. So you'll be able to see these things that a normal defendant won't be able to see. And I assume, knock wood, I haven't been sued lately. Cross my fingers. But we're in a more litigious world than ever, where people are looking for a payday by suing a hardworking business owner.
Correct. And it is unfortunate. I mean, just a simple lawsuit, whether it's somebody falling in the premises accidentally or somebody alleging that perhaps did not have the proper access to the ADA accommodations, an employee that perhaps is alleging that did not get paid the proper overtime or the proper vacation. The statutes allow the attorneys who accept these cases to collect attorney's fees, and even from the employer. And some of the, just use an example of an employee type of lawsuit, and in some cases, it's actually less expensive or cheaper for the employer to settle the case than defend the case. Right. So it is an economic decision that the business owner has to make, and whether even if the business owner is correct on the facts, they have to make the calculation, am I better off just paying this off or defending it? And for the most part, they decide to settle simply because it's just too costly to take a case all the way to trial.
Yeah, it's always a practical decision when it comes down to it at the end. I mean, if you're an Airbnb owner and a guest is giving you a hard time and is threatening with, maybe a lawsuit, maybe a bad review, it might be best to comp the vacation rather than deal with a litigious tenant, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, business litigation, as I tell my clients, is about resources.
Yeah.
It's whoever has the most resources most likely will win.
Exactly.
So you can have in a contract, and I get the question, very common question that I receive is that they will send me a contract that it says legal. And I'm like, okay, most contracts that you'll have coming your way are legally sound. They're well-written contracts. They have all the right provisions. The question is whether the provisions of the contracts are a good deal for you.
Yeah.
because you can write yourself into a really, really bad deal in a legally sound contract. And that's the distinction that has to be made, especially when business owners are sent contracts, whether it's for lease agreements, whether it's to buy or sell the business, which we do as well, and whether it's a franchise agreement. They're all legally sound contracts. But I said, well, exactly, I look at the concept, what did you agree to do here? What are you going to do? What are you going to receive? Tell me about it. Then I look at the contract and I'm like, well, that doesn't say that, exactly as you explained it to me. And I said, do you know that if you sign this contract, and for example, in a buy-sell agreement, I'll give you an example that somebody is selling a business, for instance, and, for say $300,000, a restaurant, and then, I'm going to get $100,000 down, but, I'm going to go ahead and finance $200,000 over 2 years, just for sake of argument, and it happens frequently. And I said, well, it's going to happen if you do not receive that money. What are you going to do? Well, I have a promissory note. I have a contract. Okay, great. What if they don't pay you? What are you going to do? So, you have to basically file a lawsuit to collect on the money. And if they don't have the money, you're not going to collect your $200,000.
Right.
So the contracts are only as good as people's willingness to fulfill the contracts, to comply with the contract. But somebody with resources could actually break a contract and get away with it.
It seems like one of your goals of the book is to get people to think legally and then realize that they're not lawyers and that when push comes to shove, you need to get professional help.
Correct. Yes. And also to allow us the opportunity, especially business lawyers, to really analyze the case, analyze the situation, and put the business owner at ease. For the most part, we have a lot of tools available at our disposal. And sometimes a phone call from a lawyer to a lawyer, it's really different than from a business owner who has received a demand letter to the person who's sending the demand letter. It just makes a huge difference to allow a professional to handle it for the business owner versus handling it yourself. And I give people the advice, when is a good time to call a lawyer? I said there are two triggers that I believe are two events that I think that they should keep in mind. If you receive a demand letter or a lawsuit, clearly get a lawyer immediately. But if your problem that you are thinking about is keeping you up at night, then perhaps that next morning is a good time to call the attorney and make that appointment. And 9 out of 10 times, you're going to feel more at ease, more relaxed that you actually had that consultation, because the problem may not be as big as you think it is.
Right.
We see this on a daily basis. We see it day in and day out. Most, especially business problems, are resolvable. They can be solved because we have a lot of options. We have a lot of creativity. We can really, it's a white canvas when we're talking about business problems. So we can really look at a lot of different options to try to solve it.
Yeah. And if you feel like you can't afford a lawyer, the fact is you can't afford not to have a lawyer in that situation, because the cost or the price you might pay not having a lawyer will be greater.
Correct. Yes. And again, a consultation with an attorney will be maybe a few $100s. And in some cases, they offer, free consultations as well for half an hour or so. So just, you'll have access to one. It's good to have an attorney in your team. You have an accountant in your team. So having a business lawyer as part of your overall business team is a good idea.
Tell me the kind of resources business owners have access to when they work with you at the Florida Small Business Legal Center.
Well, obviously we have, 18 years experience doing, helping business owners throughout the state of Florida. We have a very, intense legal library. I mean, we use the best legal libraries that we can have, but we also have the experience that, to know that most likely whatever business problem you have faced or you're facing, we have seen it in the past. We have a great team of attorneys. We have a great team of paralegal staff as well. So we're very effective. We're fast. and we really harness technology. We are a small business as well. We're a small business, so we try to harness technology to the best that we can to be able to communicate with the client as fast and as efficiently as possible. And we also understand that most likely the business problem that their business owner is facing will exceed their available budget at the time. So we're realistic in that regard. So what we try to do is basically prioritize how we can neutralize the problem first and then how to solve it. And we also have, for those who don't have the liquid cash available, we also provide financing through some finance companies that offer financing for legal services as well. So we try to provide, all the tools available to be able to retain the client if they want to retain our services, and also try to just get them out. That's basically my slogan. Slogan is our goal is to help you succeed. So we try to get them out of the legal problem so they can go out there and succeed in their business.
Exactly, because it's the last thing a small business owner wants is a legal headache. They're working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And then when they get hit with a lawsuit for something they feel is unreasonable or ridiculous, it hurts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even if they're right, and that's the unfortunate part. Sometimes the business owner is right. And I said, listen, we need to make a business decision here. It is not an easy one, but we have to make it. Another advice that I give my clients is that they need to make sure that the proper business insurance. I know for lease agreements, they need to have, general liability insurance, but there's also business interruption insurance they can have, professional liability insurance. So yeah, some of them might be costly, but the benefit of having business insurance is that if you get any type of claim, the first thing asking, do you have any type of insurance that could cover this? And if they do, they say, let's take a look at it. Let's put in a claim, with the insurance company. The worst case can happen. They come back with a denial. You're not in any worse position if they deny the claim than when you call me initially. But in some cases, and that's happened to a friend of mine, as a gym owner, that a few years ago, somebody allegedly got injured in one of the machines. They filed a lawsuit. And I said, okay, we can start it, but do me a favor, let's check out with your policy to see if it's something that they would cover. So when we began to defend it, the policy stepped in and they took over the case. So all my clients do is pay the deductible and they resolved it. So it's better. So you have two prongs here. You have the contracting prong of making sure that whatever service you're providing, if it's something that is contract based, you have a contract. But also you have the insurance prong, the insurance side, that you're properly covered by insurance. And that's as much protection you can have. I mean, you're never going to have a guarantee somebody not suing you. It's just impossible. Any type of contract relationship, it is a risk. It's an opportunity for something going wrong. So what you can do is perhaps have clarity in your contracts. And should something happen, because nobody's perfect, you have the ability to protect yourself with insurance. So you're paying the premiums. So that's what they're for. You make a mistake, let them handle it.
Yeah, well, that's a great example that you made of the gym owner who had a client who was allegedly injured on a machine and that their insurance would cover it. So that kind of was an end run around any litigation, which would have been costly, of course. I know during COVID, a lot of business owners tried to access their insurance because of loss of business, but there were many pandemic exemptions and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's still litigation. There's some jurisdictions have actually had different results, but in most contracts, you have something called force majeure. What it means that you can avoid the obligations under a contract under an act of God or a governmental action, for example. So in many cases, when we had lease, surprisingly, landlords were suing tenants during COVID for failure to pay the lease. Despite of government shutdowns. Didn't matter. They were still suing and they're trying to collect the rent. So we raise the defenses of force majeure or impossibility of performance. If you're say a restaurant in a food court, and say Miami-Dade had a lot of shutdowns, and so in Broward County, and then all of a sudden the county decides to shut you down and say nobody can leave their homes, and all the businesses must shut down during a period of time. That's impossible for you as a tenant to be able to perform the benefit or the purpose of the contract in the first place. So that's a valid defense. For how long you can actually claim that defense, that's more of a question of fact, whether that particular shutdown would affect you for the entire year or it's only for a period of time. That is different. But a force majeure provision will allow you to avoid the contract because of something that was out of your control. In this particular case, COVID-19 created government shutdowns, which prevented the purpose of the contract. So that's about defense, and that's something that we have raised.
Exactly. And this is exactly why you need to talk to a lawyer in a situation like this. You realize that this is beyond your control. You didn't do anything wrong. You paid your rent faithfully for years and years. And now the government has basically shut down the mall or made it so restrictive that you can barely open, and your landlord is asking for rent. There must be some kind of legal recourse, and you don't know what it is. Talk to someone like yourself, and there you have it with force majeure, it's called?
Force majeure.
Yep. Wonderful, wonderful. We're about to wrap it up, but I just wanted to know if there's anything else you'd like viewers and readers to know about your book.
I think the book has 8 chapters. You can read the book, one chapter, and you get something out of each individual chapter. I spend a great deal of time talking about, what to look for when you're going to hire a lawyer. So, what questions to ask, what expectations to have. And I've given it to my clients when they sign up with me. I'll give them a book. I send them an autographed copy. But the feedback that I get is that, this is a reference guide. And that to me means a great deal when they say, I keep it as a reference guide. And that's what I believe it is, because it's really more of a conversation. It's not a legal book that are going to be analyzing cases. As I'm telling you, listen, these are the potential landmines you're going to be facing during your journey. Hopefully, you're not going to face all of them. That will be a really, really bad year for you. But you will face some of them. And inevitably, you will face them. There's going to be an employee issue along the way. You might have, you're going to have your lease renewal coming up at some point. There's a chapter on leases. You might decide to sell your business. And there's a chapter on selling your business. You're going to buy a business. There's a long chapter in due diligence about what to look for when you're going to buy a business and the importance of doing the proper investigation before you buy it. Otherwise, you end up buying a business that may not work out. And I have examples of there are some purchases of businesses that have not gone well. So you will get something out of it. You will enjoy it. It is an easy read. And you will, I guarantee you'll get something out of it, and you'll be better prepared to face the challenges that you're going to be facing along the way.
Absolutely. It's a book you're going to want to have handy if you're a business owner, because at one point you're going to need to refer to it and figure out what to do to get help. Rush Limbaugh used to say, for every zero on your paycheck, consider them targets on your back. So the more money you make, the more likely you are to be sued. So keep that in mind too as you're growing your business. The name of the book is called Business SOS, 8 Common Legal Mistakes Business Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. It is a masterful guide. It is a resource book. It is written by Richard Sierra. He is a renowned legal expert based in Florida. He is an author as well. You can contact him in Florida if you have specific questions, if you have more generalized inquiries you want to make or learn about. The book is there as well. Richard, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, Logan. A pleasure to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
Visit www.greatwritersmedia.com. Email us at info@greatwritersmedia.com. Call us at 877 600-5469. Subscribe now.